Okay, I know what you're gonna say. Steve, you always tell us that we need to buy independent watches, that the big brands are terrible, they're crap, don't put your money there, it's immoral, it's garbage. Okay, I get it. And most of the time, I'm right. However, in some instances, the big brands turn out some pretty amazing stuff. And today I've got one of them for you. This is the Jaeger LeCoultre Grand Tradition minute repeater in titanium vanadium. It is an insanely incredible watch made kind of in a way that only a big brand can. Now, when these guys put all of their resources together, they can turn out some pretty incredible stuff. And this is not the kind of product that is ever going to impact the bottom line. So this is really the type of thing that is a flagship product just to show us that they've got what it takes and that they are, you know, one of the big three or big four, perhaps, as it is. I can't wait to show this to you. It's one that you really need to see up close, and of course you need to hear it as well. So let's just dig right in to one of my favorite modern big brand watches, this time from JLC. Here it is, the Grand Tradition minute repeater from Jaeger LeCoultre. This is really one of the coolest big brand modern watches that I can think of, and it combines a bunch of really practical things into one sort of mega super watch. So I want to go over all of these. I did a review a few years ago of the Master minute repeater, also in titanium, and this is an update of that watch. In my opinion, they took a few of the weaknesses and made them all better, and this is a really excellent example of somebody taking a really great watch and making it better. The first thing you'll notice if you're familiar with the Master minute repeater is that they changed the case shape. It's a little bit difficult to explain exactly how. The main thing you'll notice is that the bezel profile is a lot different. And if you see them side by side, you would notice immediately. I think this case is much, much nicer than the Master minute repeater case shape. It's just much sleeker. That one tends to come off as a little bit brutish sometimes, whereas this one is pretty perfectly proportioned. So the next thing they did was they put these gold hands and markers on. This gives it a little bit of extra pop. It helps with the readability, and I think also is nothing but positive here. The last thing that you'll notice is this inner ring. This isn't really functional. The hour hand kind of tracks on it, but it does pull the design together in my opinion. So you always had these kind of loops here, and then it was fully open otherwise. And this nice ring that intersects with these kind of pulls the whole dial together. So I like all of the changes that they did. They also made this version much more limited. It's limited to 100 pieces, and I believe the Master minute repeater in titanium was 1,000 pieces. So 100 for a big brand is actually quite a limited watch. This is hard to come by. There's not a whole lot to see on the back, so we're not going to spend a ton of time here. I do have to apologize for the slight gap here in the strap. I hate wearing watches on factory black straps. They're just boring to me. So I was sure I was going to put it on this beautiful sort of caramel colored strap that goes really nicely with the gold markers, only to find out that these lugs are, I think, 22.5 millimeters. So none of my straps fit properly. If I was going to keep this and wear it, I'd have to get a custom strap. But it's pretty close. On the wrist, it looks pretty good. I just know that YouTubers are going to burn me in the comments for it. Anyway, before we get to the minute repeater, let's just see what it is that we're dealing with. Over here, if you've seen my Richard Mille tourbillon videos, you'll be familiar with this. This is actually a torque meter. And what happens is, as you wind it, this goes up to the optimum torque range, which is somewhere up here. As the power reserve comes down, at some point this will start coming down and you'll know that you're not getting peak chronometer performance anymore. The torque coming out of the mainsprings just won't be enough to guarantee timekeeping accuracy. So it basically tells you when it's a good time to wind your watch. Otherwise it tells you that everything's working fine. As I alluded to here, this is a power reserve, and this is one of the great features of this watch, I think. It's a 15-day power reserve. Now this is, I think, a really underrated thing in the world of watches, having a very long power reserve. I hate watch winders, but also I hate picking up a dead watch out of the safe. So this is a really nice happy medium where you can wear the watch, put it away for a week, pull it out again, and it's still completely on time and you don't have to set it. Just give it a little bit of wind and you're good to go. The last thing I want to get to is the actual case material. Now this case is made out of an alloy of titanium and vanadium, which is obviously a material that we don't speak about a lot. I am not a materials expert, but my understanding is that it's used in tool manufacturing sometimes, and that this alloy, while it retains its lightness and it sounds really great as a minute repeater material, it also makes it quite a bit more scratch resistant, which is awesome to have. I mean, the really cool thing about this watch ultimately is that you've got super watch features, right? You've got a minute repeater and an extremely long power reserve in a watch that you can really wear every day. And so the material contributes quite a bit to that. Now, before I want to wind it up, I want to discuss a little bit about the minute repeater and a common misconception. If you go back to my master minute repeater video, I actually explained a lot about the workings of a minute repeater, so I won't go too into depth here. But I think one of the things that people don't realize is that the energy for a minute repeater comes from the slide itself. So the watch doesn't actually have to be wound in order to run the minute repeater. And as evidence of that, I'll show you here. Now, this is with my directional mic pointed away from the watch. So you'll hear how loud this is. You're still going to be able to hear it, and yet it's basically not mic'd at all. So you see there, this watch is not running. It's not wound. You don't need to wind a watch to use the minute repeater. That's a really cool thing to know. And it's awesome also if you're ever like checking out a minute repeater at an auction house or something like that and you want to hear the repeater, you don't have to mess with winding the watch or setting it or anything like that. You can just rack the slide and it'll go. Now, I'm sure you noticed there that one of the really cool things about this minute repeater in particular is that all of the essential workings are on the dial side. So you can see the whole repeater work. You can see when you rack the slide how it transfers the power and winds that little spring right there, and then everything gets working. Around here are the gongs, this matte thing coming around here and down. These are the hammers that hit those gongs. Now, one of the innovations in this watch is that they actually made it water resistant. And again, this just speaks to how it's a totally wearable super watch. Most repeaters are not water resistant. This slide tends to be a place where water can get in, and people are reticent to use a lot of gaskets in a minute repeater because it holds the sound in, basically. So the few water resistant minute repeaters that there are tend to sound very muffled. Now what they did here was that they actually connected the chimes to this little piece right here, which you can see has a couple musical notes on it, and it's affixed to the crystal. And so when the gongs hit the chimes, it actually resonates through the sapphire crystal itself and amplifies the sound in that way. The result is one of the loudest minute repeaters I've ever heard. You can absolutely hear this watch on your wrist in a big, open, crowded room. So it's incredibly functional. I'm going to mic it now and let you guys hear it loudly, but first I'm going to wind it up and show you the torque meter and the power reserve. So you can see power reserve's climbing, and the torque meter will go down to 0 as you're winding it because the barrel itself is moving. If you put a little back pressure on the barrel, the torque meter will start reading. So we're going to keep going here. Now you don't have to do that back pressure. What will happen after you stop is that will come up itself as the barrel sort of pulls back and starts putting pressure back on the winding stem. So you can watch that here. There you go. And if we help it out. Okay, so now we're right up in the nice range. With just that little bit of winding, I got us more than 7 days of power reserve. So this is just awesome. Really makes this watch a pleasure to wear. Let me mic it up and give you a taste of the minute repeater. This is no tricks. This is not a lav mic on it or anything like that. It's still just a room mic. I just turned it around. And let's advance it. And we'll get to a nice minute repeater time. Let's do, I should have just stopped at 1250 something, but here we'll do 1150 something. And let's rock and roll. Pretty awesome to be able to hear and see it go at the same time. Here it is on the wrist. It's 44 millimeters, but as you can see, it fits really, really nicely. And because it's titanium and light, it's incredibly comfortable on the wrist. This is a watch that really I could wear every single day. And still, I have a minute repeater with me, which is just, in my mind, like as cool as a thing can be, you know? This is what happens when these big brands with all these resources actually come together to make an amazing product. You know, they kind of go off autopilot and decide we're going to flex our muscles here and show these guys what we can do. You get pretty incredible stuff like this. And you know, if an independent made a watch like this, it would have to be several $100,000s. Even the retail price of this watch was only, I mean, it's crazy to say only, but for what it is, it was about $170,000, which is definitely not bad for what you're getting. And if you're lucky to be seeing this and checking my site while I still have it for sale, I'm selling it for considerably less than that. So I think it's a pretty amazing bargain. I would love to have one of these myself that I could wear around. I'd be happy to daily drive this thing. Anyway, I'm glad you guys were able to see it. I'm always happy to share stuff like this with you. I'll be back soon with lots more reviews. I've got a lot of really great stuff to show you. So please keep tuning in, hit subscribe, tell your friends. Let's do this thing.